I'm writing this because I need someone to know how completely I destroyed my life. Maybe it'll stop one of you from making the same mistake. Maybe it won't. But here's how I went from planning my dream wedding to sitting alone in a studio apartment, blocked by everyone I ever loved. It started with a text message at 2 a.m. Thinking about you. That's it. 4 words from my college friend Sarah. 4 words that I should have deleted immediately. Instead, I stared at my phone screen while my fiancée Emma slept peacefully next to me, her engagement ring catching the moonlight. We'd been together 8 years. Engaged for 2. The wedding was 3 months away. Emma had spent the weekend showing me seating charts and flower arrangements, her eyes bright with excitement about our special day. She'd already taken my last name on her work email signature. Already started planning our honeymoon to Ireland. I texted back too. That's where it started. Not with some grand passionate affair, but with 2 words typed in the dark while the woman I'd promised to marry dreamed beside me. Sarah had moved back to town 6 months earlier for a new job. We'd reconnected at a mutual friend's birthday party, where she looked exactly like the girl I'd crushed on sophomore year but never had the courage to ask out. She was single now. Successful. Available. The texting escalated over weeks. Late night conversations about, what if we'd gotten together back then? Shared memories from college. Harmless, I told myself, just catching up with an old friend. Then came the lunch invitations. Just as friends, we both said. Emma knows we're meeting. I lied to myself, even though I'd started deleting the messages. The lunch became coffee dates. Coffee dates became long walks. Long walks became that moment 3 weeks before my wedding when Sarah looked at me across the table at some hole in the wall cafe and said, I think I'm falling for you. I should have stood up and walked away. Should have gone home to Emma and confessed everything. Should have remembered why I'd chosen Emma in the first place, her kindness, her loyalty, the way she believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Instead, I reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. I think I am too. The physical affair started 2 days later. We met at her apartment while Emma was at her bridal shower. The one thrown by her sister and best friends, where they probably talked about how lucky Emma was to have found such a devoted guy. The irony makes me sick even now. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life. Morning kisses with Emma as she left for work, stolen afternoons with Sarah. Emma would come home excited about RSVPs and final dress fit-ins while I deleted messages and covered my tracks like some amateur criminal. I told myself I was just confused, cold feet before the wedding, that I'd figure it out after the honeymoon, that Emma would never have to know. Then Emma found the receipts. Not metaphorical receipts, actual receipts. From the restaurant where Sarah and I had our first real date, from the hotel where we'd spent a Tuesday afternoon, from the jewelry store where I'd bought Sarah a necklace, all stuffed in my jacket pocket like evidence of my own stupidity. Emma found them while looking for gum. Such a small innocent moment. She was getting ready for dinner with her parents to finalize wedding details. Needed fresh breath reached into my coat pocket. I watched her face change as she read through them. Watched 8 years of trust crumble in real time. The confusion first, then the recognition, then the devastation that physically doubled her over. Who is Sarah? She whispered, holding the jewelry store receipt. I could have lied. Could have made up some story about a cousin or coworker. But something in Emma's eyes, the way she already knew, the way she was giving me one last chance to tell the truth, made me crack. She's someone I've been seeing. The words hung in the air like poison. Emma stared at me for what felt like hours but was probably 30 seconds. Then she laughed. Not a happy laugh, a broken hollow sound I'd never heard before. Our wedding is in 17 days, she said quietly. 17 days and you've been seeing someone. She didn't yell. Didn't throw things. Just stood there holding those receipts while tears ran down her cheeks, and somehow that was worse than any explosion would have been. Emma, I can explain. Don't. Her voice was steady now, cold. Don't you dare try to explain this away. She walked to our bedroom that we'd shared for 3 years, where we'd talked about babies and growing old together. I heard drawers opening, the sound of the suitcase we'd used for our last vacation together. By the time I worked up the courage to follow her, she was packing. Emma, please. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. You're the one I want to marry. She turned around, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not just hurt, not just anger, complete and total disgust. If I meant anything to you, this never would have happened. She said, don't insult me by pretending otherwise now. She was right, and we both knew it. Her sister picked her up an hour later. Emma didn't look at me as she carried her bags to the car. Didn't respond when I called her name. Just got in the passenger seat and stared ahead as they drove away. That night, alone in our apartment surrounded by wedding planning books and unopened gifts, I called Sarah. Found out, I said. Oh. Long pause. So what happens now? I don't know. Do you want to be with me? She asked. It was the question I'd been avoiding for weeks. In that moment, sitting in the wreckage of my relationship, I realized the awful truth. I don't know, I said again. Sarah hung up. Within 24 hours, Emma had called off the wedding. Her father handled the vendors. Her mother returned the gifts. Her sister posted on social media that due to unforeseen circumstances, Emma and Mike's wedding has been cancelled. No explanation, no drama, just a clean, efficient dismantling of everything we'd built together. Emma blocked my number, my email, my social media accounts. When I drove to her sister's house where she was staying, no one answered the door, though I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. I quit my job because I couldn't handle the pitying looks from coworkers who'd been invited to our wedding. Moved out of our apartment because everything reminded me of her. Started therapy because I was having panic attacks. 3 months later, I ran into Emma at the grocery store. She looked different or sadder. But also somehow stronger, like she'd survived something terrible and come out the other side. "Hi," I said pathetically. She nodded once and kept walking. "That was 6 months ago. I've tried to rebuild, try to date, try to convince myself that what I lost wasn't that special. But late at night, when I'm honest with myself, I know the truth. Emma was my person. The one who would have stood by me through anything. Who would have been an incredible mother to our children, an amazing partner through all a life's challenges. And I threw it all away for someone I didn't even love, someone who disappeared the moment things got complicated. The worst part isn't the loneliness, though that's crushing. It isn't the shame, though that follows me everywhere. It's knowing that somewhere out there, Emma is healing from what I did to her. She's probably learning to trust again, maybe even falling in love with someone who deserves her. Someone who won't betray her 17 days before their wedding. Someone who won't choose a moment of excitement over a lifetime of love. Someone who isn't me. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was selfish and weak, and convinced myself I deserved more than what I had. Now I know exactly what I'm worth, and it's not much. If you're reading this and thinking about that text message, that coffee date, that harmless flirtation, don't. Whatever you think you're missing, whatever you think you deserve, it's not worth losing the person who actually loves you. Trust me, I would know. 6 months after Emma left, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I was wrong. Rock bottom was still coming, and it had my mother's voice. "Michael, we need to talk." Mom never used my full name unless someone had died or I was in serious trouble. Since no one had died, I knew which one it was. She was standing on my doorstep with that look, the one she'd given me when I was 12 and she'd found out I'd been stealing lunch money. Disappointed but not surprised, like she'd been waiting for me to screw up this badly. "Can I come in?" My studio apartment was a disaster. Pizza boxes, empty beer bottles, laundry I hadn't done in weeks. Not exactly the life she'd imagined for her son, who was supposed to be married by now, settled down, maybe working on grandkids. "Sit down," she said, and I knew this was going to be bad. "I talked to Emma's mother yesterday." My stomach dropped. Emma's mom, Patricia, had always loved me. Called me her future son-in-law even before I proposed. Made my favorite cookies every Christmas. Cried happy tears when Emma showed her the engagement ring. She told me what really happened. Mom continued. About the other woman. About Emma finding those receipts. I'd told my family that Emma and I had grown apart. That we'd decided we weren't right for each other. That it was mutual. The kind of sanitized breakup story that let everyone save face. "Mom, I can explain." "No." Her voice was sharp. "You can't explain this. There is no explanation for what you did to that girl." She was right, but hearing it from my own mother felt like being slapped. "Patricia is devastated," Mom went on. "Not just for Emma, but for all of us. She said Emma won't even let her mention your name anymore. Won't talk about the wedding, won't talk about you. Just shuts down completely." I thought about Emma shutting down, going quiet and small, and felt sick. "She loved you like a son," Mom said quietly. "We all did. Patricia, Emma's father, her whole family. You were already part of their family, Michael. And you threw it away for what? Some fling." "It wasn't just a fling," I said weakly. Mom's laugh was bitter. "Where is she now? This woman who was so worth destroying your life for?" Sarah had stopped returning my calls 3 weeks after Emma left. When I'd finally gotten her on the phone, she'd been distant, distracted. "This is too messy," she'd said. "I didn't sign up for all this drama, but I left Emma for you," I'd said, pathetic and desperate. "I never asked you to do that." She was seeing someone new now. Some guy from her office. I'd seen them together on social media before I finally unfollowed her. They looked happy, uncomplicated. "She's gone," I admitted to Mom. "Of course she is. Women like that don't stick around when things get difficult. They move on to the next man, the next excitement." "But Emma," Mom's voice cracked. "Emma would have been with you through anything. Cancer, job loss, whatever life threw at you. And you knew that, didn't you?" "I did know that. It's what made the betrayal so much worse. Your father is ashamed to tell people what happened." Mom continued. "His friends ask about the wedding, about Emma, and he has to make excuses. He can't even look at me when he talks about it. Dad had always been proud of me. Called Emma the best thing that ever happened to you. And meant it. The fact that he couldn't even face telling people what I'd done was somehow worse than if he'd yelled at me. And your sister Kate had been Emma's maid of honor. They'd gotten close over the years, shopping together, having girls' nights. Kate had been so excited about the wedding, about officially having Emma as a sister. Kate keeps asking if Emma's okay, if there's any way to fix this. She doesn't understand how you could do something so selfish. None of them understood because it was incomprehensible. I'd had everything, a woman who loved me unconditionally, a family who welcomed me, a future that looked bright and secure, And I'd traded it all for a few weeks of excitement with someone who didn't even care enough to stick around for the fallout. The worst part, Mom said, and her voice was getting quieter, more dangerous, is that you're not even sorry for the right reasons. What do you mean? You're sorry you got caught. Sorry Emma left. Sorry your life is hard now. But are you sorry for what you put her through? For breaking the heart of the sweetest girl you'll ever meet, for making her question whether she's worthy of love. The truth hit me like a truck. She was right. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own loss, that I hadn't really considered what Emma was going through. The humiliation of having to cancel a wedding, the explanation she'd had to give to friends and family. The way she probably lay awake at night wondering what she'd done wrong, why she wasn't enough. Emma's getting counseling, Mom said. Did you know that? Patricia told me she's seeing a therapist because she can't trust her own judgment anymore. She thinks there must have been signs she missed, things she should have known. I felt like I was going to throw up. She's not dating. Won't even consider it. Says she can't tell the difference between a good man and a liar anymore. Every word was a knife. Emma, who used to believe the best in everyone, who saw potential and goodness everywhere, was broken. Because of me. I want you to listen to me very carefully, Mom said, leaning forward. You are not to contact her. Not to apologize, not to explain, not to try to make yourself feel better. You've done enough damage. But maybe if I could just, no. Her voice was final. The kindest thing you can do for Emma now is to leave her alone. Let her heal without having to see your face or hear your voice. We sat in silence for a long time. Outside, I could hear kids playing, couples walking by talking about dinner plans, the normal sounds of people living normal lives that hadn't been destroyed by their own stupidity. I keep thinking about your grandmother, Mom said eventually. Grandma Rose had died 2 years earlier. She'd loved Emma, always asked about, or Emma, whenever we talked. At the funeral, Emma had cried as hard as any of us. Grandma Rose used to say that character is what you do when no one is watching. When it's just you and your choices and your conscience. I remembered Grandma saying that, usually when I was a kid and had done something wrong. She would be so disappointed in you. Mom said simply. That broke me. I started crying, really crying, for the first time since Emma left. Not the angry, frustrated tears I'd shed over my own loneliness, but deep, grieving sobs for everything I'd destroyed. Mom didn't comfort me. Didn't tell me it would be okay or that I could fix this. Just sat there and let me cry, the way you'd let a child cry after they'd done something terrible, and had to face the consequences. When I finally stopped, she stood up. I love you, she said. You're my son and I'll always love you. But I don't like who you've become. And until you figure out how to be the man Emma thought you were, the man Grandma Rose raised you to be, I think we should have some space. She walked to the door, then turned back. Patricia asked me to give you something. She pulled an envelope from her purse. My name was written on it in Emma's careful handwriting. She said Emma wrote this but couldn't bring herself to send it. Patricia thought you should see it anyway. After Mom left, I stared at that envelope for hours. Emma's handwriting, which I'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists and love notes left on the bathroom mirror. Her perfect script that dotted every, and crossed every. When I finally opened it, there was just one line. I hope she was worth it. But it wasn't angry or bitter. It was just, sad. Defeated. Like she'd given up not just on me but on the idea that love was supposed to be safe. I read those 5 words over and over until they blurred through my tears. The worst part was that they weren't even meant to hurt me. They were just Emma being honest, the way she'd always been honest about everything. And the answer was so clear, so obvious that it made me hate myself even more. No, she wasn't worth it. Nothing was worth what I'd done. But by the time I figured that out, it was already too late to matter. A year and a half later, I found out Emma was engaged. Not from her, obviously. Not from mutual friends, since we didn't have any anymore. I found out from a LinkedIn notification that popped up on my phone while I was eating lunch alone at my desk. Emma Richardson is now engaged to David Chen. One sentence that destroyed whatever progress I thought I'd made in moving on. I stared at that notification until my screen went dark, then immediately hated myself for caring. What right did I have to feel anything about Emma's happiness? I'd forfeited that right the day I chose Sarah over her. But I couldn't stop myself from looking. David Chen, software engineer apparently, clean, cut guy with kind eyes and a genuine smile in his profile picture. The kind of man who probably never had a wandering eye, never deleted text messages, never made Emma question her worth. Everything I should have been. I spent the rest of that day in a haze, going through the motions at my new job while my mind spiraled. Emma was engaged. Someone else was planning a wedding with her, picking out flowers, tasting cake. Someone else got to see her face light up when she talked about their future. When I got home, I did something I'd promised myself I'd never do. I drove to our old neighborhood. Emma had moved out of her sister's place months ago. I'd heard through the grapevine. Got her own apartment across town, started fresh. But I still knew where her parents lived, and I had this desperate need to see something, anything, that connected to the life I'd thrown away. Their house looked the same. Patricia's garden was blooming. She'd always been proud of those roses. Emma used to help her plant them every spring, getting dirt under her fingernails and laughing when the cat tried to help. I was sitting in my car like a stalker when Patricia came out to get the mail. She saw me immediately. Our eyes met across the street, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked over. Patricia had always been tiny, barely 5 feet tall, but she'd never seemed small. Now, standing next to my car window, she looked fragile in a way that made my chest tight. Michael. Hi Mrs. Richardson, I'm sorry I shouldn't be here. No, you shouldn't. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. But since you are, we might as well talk. She got in the passenger seat without asking, and suddenly I was transported back to all the times she'd driven Emma and me places when we were younger. Family dinners, holiday parties, that weekend trip to the lake where I'd first told Emma I loved her. You heard about the engagement, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, he's a good man, Patricia said quietly. Patient. He makes her laugh again. Again, like I'd stolen Emma's laughter and this David person had given it back. I'm glad she's happy, I said and meant it even though it killed me. Are you? Patricia studied my face. Because you look terrible, Michael. Thin, sad. I was both of those things. The last year and a half had been a slow motion disaster. I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose, developed insomnia, started seeing a therapist who kept asking me to examine my patterns of self-sabotage. Work was fine, life was functional. But I felt like I was sleepwalking through everything. She almost didn't say yes, Patricia said suddenly. What? When David proposed. She almost said no. My heart stopped. Why? Patricia was quiet for a long time looking out at her garden. Because of you, she said finally. Because you broke something in her that took a very long time to heal. When David got down on one knee, her first thought wasn't joy. It was fear. Each word was a punch to the gut. She told me later that she panicked. Started thinking about wedding planning and trust, and whether any man could really be faithful. Whether she was just setting herself up to be humiliated again. I thought about Emma in that moment, faced with a man who loved her enough to propose, and feeling fear instead of excitement because of what I'd done to her. But David's different. Patricia continued. He spent months earning her trust, not just saying he loved her, but showing it, being consistent, being honest about everything, even stupid little things, because he knew how badly you damaged her ability to believe. How is she now? I asked quietly. Better, much better. But she's different than she was with you. Different how? I wanted to ask, but I wasn't sure I could handle the answer. She's more careful now, guards her heart more. It took her 8 months to introduce David to us. Even though she'd been dating him for over a year. She used to bring you to family dinner after 3 weeks. I remembered that dinner. How nervous I'd been, how Emma had held my hand under the table and whispered that her parents would love me. How right she'd been. She doesn't trust easily anymore. Patricia said. Checks his phone sometimes though she tries to hide it. Asks more questions, needs more reassurance. David doesn't mind, he understands why. But it breaks my heart that she has to live that way now. The worst part was knowing that Emma probably hated herself for being suspicious, for not being able to trust completely. She'd always been so open, so willing to believe the best in people. I'd turned her into someone who second-guessed and worried and checked phones. She's happy though. Patricia said, and I could hear the fierce protectiveness in her voice. David makes her happy. He's going to be a wonderful husband and father. They're talking about kids, about buying a house. All the things she should have had with you. Kids. Emma had always wanted children. We talked about names, about how many we wanted. About what kind of parents we'd be. Now someone else would get to see her pregnant, hold her hand during labor, watch her become the amazing mother I knew she'd be. Their wedding is in 6 months, Patricia said. October. She always wanted a fall wedding, remember? I did remember. Emma had shown me pictures from magazines, talked about autumn leaves and warm colors. We'd planned a summer wedding because the venue we wanted had a cancellation, but she'd always dreamed of October. It's going to be beautiful. Patricia continued. Small, just family and close friends. David's family is lovely. His parents are so excited to have Emma as a daughter-in-law. Like Patricia had been excited about me once upon a time. I need to ask you something, she said, turning to face me fully. Okay, promise me you won't try to contact her, not to congratulate her, not to apologize, nothing. She's finally happy again, finally healing, and I need to know you won't undo that. I promise. I said immediately. I mean it, Michael. If you have any love left for her at all, any respect for what you once had, you'll let her have this. Let her have a wedding day that isn't shadowed by thoughts of you. Let her have a marriage that isn't haunted by what you did. I will. I promise. Patricia nodded, then reached over and squeezed my hand. It was the first kind touch I'd had from Emma's family since everything fell apart. I did love you, she said softly. We all did. You were a good man for a long time, and I choose to remember that version of you. She got out of the car and walked back to her house without looking back. That night I did something I should have done 18 months earlier. I wrote Emma a letter. Not to send, I'd promised Patricia I wouldn't contact her. But I needed to say the words, even if she'd never see them. A Dear Emma, I know I have no right to write this, and I'm not going to send it, but I need you to know these things even if you never will. I'm sorry. Not the shallow, selfish sorry I felt when you first left, but the deep, bone-crushing sorry that comes from finally understanding what I destroyed. I'm sorry for betraying your trust. I'm sorry for making you question your worth. I'm sorry for turning your dreams of marriage into something that brings you fear instead of joy. I heard about your engagement. David sounds like a good man, the kind of man you deserved all along. I hope he loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Completely and faithfully and without reservation. I hope your wedding is everything you dreamed of. I hope you have babies who laugh like you do and see the world with your kindness. I hope you're able to trust again fully, to love again without the shadow of what I did hanging over you. You deserve a marriage built on solid ground, not on the shaky foundation of wondering if your husband will stay faithful. I think about you every day. Not because I think we could ever get back together, but because losing you taught me what love actually means. It means choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard, even when something exciting comes along. It means protecting what you have instead of taking it for granted. I failed that test completely. I failed you. But maybe that failure can mean something if it helps someone else make better choices. Maybe my biggest mistake can be someone else's warning. I love you enough now to love you completely. To want your happiness even though it doesn't include me. To hope that David is everything I wasn't. Be happy, Emma. Be so happy, Mike. I folded the letter and put it in my dresser drawer next to the ring I'd bought her. The one I'd never returned because I couldn't bear to let it go. 6 months later, on what should have been Emma's wedding day to David, I drove to the beach where she and I had gotten engaged. Sat on the sand and thought about her walking down the aisle to someone else, someone who deserved to be there. I hope she looked radiant. I hope David cried when he saw her. I hope their families cried happy tears and their friends cheered and their photographer captured every perfect moment. I hoped it was everything our wedding never got to be. When the sun set, around the time their reception would be ending, I finally took off the ring I'd worn on my right hand since Emma left. The promise ring she'd given me for our 2-year anniversary, engraved with, always and forever. I threw it into the ocean and watched it disappear beneath the waves. Some promises once broken, can never be kept again. Walking back to my car, I thought about the man I used to be. The one who had Emma's love, her family's respect, a bright future stretching ahead. That man had made a choice in a dark bedroom 18 months ago, typing 4 words to someone who wasn't his fiancée. That choice had led to others. Each one easier than the last, each one taking him further from the man Emma thought she was marrying. By the time he realized what he was giving up, it was already gone. I'm 32 years old, and I know now that Emma was it for me. The one, the love of my life. Some people get second chances, fresh starts, new beginnings. But some mistakes are so complete, so devastating that they don't leave room for redemption. I had everything a man could want, and I traded it for nothing at all. Now I'm exactly when I deserve to be alone, with only the ghost of the life I threw away for company. If you're reading this and thinking about that text message, that coffee date, that moment when you could choose your partner or something new, remember this: there are some mistakes you never stop paying for. Make sure yours isn't one of them.